A bloodbath in Beverly Hills.
What's the problem? What's the problem? Someone killed my parents.
Two privileged brothers accused of killing their parents.
I'm just a normal kid.
Oh, Eric, you're a normal kid who killed your parents.
Yeah, I know.
A televised trial that transformed millions into living room jurors.
Did your father have sexual contact with you?
Yes.
It's a story that had all the ingredients. It had money, it had murder, and it was fascinating to people from the jump.
Now the release of a controversial Netflix drama series, Monsters, the Lyle and Erik Menendez story that's topping streaming charts.
Okay, you have to shoot first so that you don't back out. What? Okay.
Raising eyebrows for the dramatized portrayal of an incestuous relationship between the brothers.
What stood out to me most was the ways in which the homoeroticism between the brothers was played out from the opening shot.
More than 3 decades later, the country transfixed again. A new generation looking at the case through a new lens.
They're more aware of the trauma that people can carry with them from abuse. It's more brought out into the open.
It was late summer 1989. On a Sunday night, shots rang out in Beverly Hills.
What happened? Who is the person that was shot? My mom and my dad.
Jose and Kitty Menendez were just watching television and eating ice cream when their sons burst into the living room with the shotguns. They just repeatedly fired at close range.
Kitty, a homemaker, and Jose, a powerful music executive.
Jose Menendez was a titanic personality. He was domineering, he wanted to get what he wanted, and he was going to steamroll anybody who got in his way.
Since they were not initially suspects, they were able to claim an insurance payout of $600,000.
The Menendez brothers went on a spending spree. They bought Porsches, they bought expensive watches. That raised suspicions, sharp suspicions, in the district attorney's office.
I got to a point where I have all this money and so much pain, I don't know what to do with it.
Guilt was weighing heavily on the then 18-year-old Erik.
You went to your psychologist, Dr. Oziel, and told him that you had committed this crime. You were in torment, and you told him.
I felt that I was the worst person on earth, and it got to a point where I couldn't live with myself anymore and I needed help. And so I went to him, and that is what the catalyst was for me getting arrested.
The glow of innocence once surrounding the Menendez brothers is now shadowed by charges of murder. Prosecutors say greed drove the boys to shooting their parents to death last August.
In July 1993, Lyle and Erik's trial began. The two handsome, well-dressed defendants would propel it into a media spectacle.
They were getting love letters and people were writing to them, so it was just a huge mania. And you have to think we weren't in a place where there was social media and things like that.
The brothers testifying that they experienced sexual abuse at the hands of their father.
My dad.
Wait 1 second, Mr. Menendez. Okay, let me ask
No, he was in the process of answering, so there's no need to ask him.
Can you answer the question?
Yes.
Okay, it was you telling Lyle what?
My dad had been molesting me.
And after confronting their parents about it, Erik and Lyle feared for their lives.
Thought they were going ahead with their plan to kill us. I was just sitting on the couch with my hands in my head saying, we're gonna die.
They had been so abused, so traumatized, and that the family was in such horror, such a situation of tension and secrets that were coming out, that they were afraid they were going to get killed if they didn't kill first.
The details, horrific.
He would put me on my knees and he would guide me, all my movements, and I would have oral sex with him.
When Erik was 13 years old, he had told his cousin, Andy Cano, about the molestation.
He wanted to know that if this happened to every kid. I do remember very specifically was him asking me to make a promise to him never to reveal that to anybody.
And so the question in the trial was, do claims of abuse excuse you or mitigate your responsibility for killing your parents? The abuse excuse, it was dubbed, and it fascinated the country.
After weeks of deliberation, a hung jury, the judge declaring a mistrial.
And as I recall, it was women on one side, men on the other side. The women believed the brothers, the men did not, or were not willing to go with the defense.
2 years later, a retrial.
Well, the second trial was very different. No television cameras, and the judge severely limited the what the brothers would call the corroborating evidence of how brutalized they were by their father.
But without that sort of sex abuse element, it really looked like they were just these really privileged, greedy children who massacred their parents because they were getting cut off financially.
They were convicted of first-degree murder, sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
I've said for years that if the Menendez brothers were the Menendez sisters, they'd be free today. People didn't want to believe it could happen to boys. They just didn't want to believe it.
3 decades later, the new series from Ryan Murphy stirring controversy because of the suggestion of an incestuous relationship between the brothers.
I love you. You're gay. And we all have to remember that this is not an accurate quote-unquote account. And anytime you do a series or a film, especially in Hollywood, it's usually sensationalized.
Even though there had been speculation over Eric's sexual orientation at the time.
I didn't hear about girlfriends.
They were there.
I guess what I just have to say to you is, are you gay?
No, I'm not gay.
Erik is taking issue with what he describes as blatant lies and a dishonest portrayal of the tragedies in the Netflix series, saying in a statement released by his wife, the show has taken the painful truth several steps backward, back through time to an era when the prosecution built a narrative on a belief system that males were not sexually abused. Their extended family weighing in, saying they support Erik and Lyle and that the show is a phobic, gross, anachronistic, serial episodic nightmare. Murphy, no stranger to controversy, telling E! News the series has created
a conversation about something that's never talked about in our culture, which is male sexual abuse, which we do responsibly.
This is a version that Ryan Murphy and Ian Brennan have done based on different reactions and different ideas and approaches from different people involved in the case.
Chloe Sevigny, who plays Kitty Menendez in the series, talked to Kim Kardashian in a video for Variety.
We're kind of playing interpretations of her, so I'm not necessarily playing her truth, which I've found very difficult. It's all people's imaginings of her.
Kardashian and Cooper Koch, the actor who played the younger brother, met with Erik as part of her prison reform activism. Koch telling the Today Show,
we had a really nice conversation, and I got to basically just tell him that I believe him, and I did everything that I could in my power as an actor to portray him as accurately and as authentically as possible.
The Menendez brothers are kind of the North Star of the true crime genre. The fact that they took the stand and explained what they did and what they say happened to them, that makes this forever fascinating to people to watch.